Hey, folks, thanks for joining us again. We're back with another episode of The Smart Life. Aaron Taylor here. Hey, I have a quick question for those of you that have kids. I'm talking about, young kids, teenagers, kids, youth. Ask yourself, is what I'm allowing in my household, am I creating a healthy culture? Here's what I mean by that. I'm talking about now more than ever, we're in a position where a lot of America, they seem to tend to be, uh, we tend to be labeled this unhealthy country. And what I mean by that is America is at, I think it's almost at the very top of the list when it comes to overall obesity, unhealthiness. And a lot of it, I think, just stems from some of our backgrounds because we're so used to consuming, we're so used to eating certain things. But now there's a shift we're kind of seeing where a lot of we're seeing parents, we're seeing adults start to identify issues within, not only just within themselves but within their kids. Okay, is what I'm feeding my child, is what the school feeding my child, is what I'm allowing my kid to actually consume, helping them, or is it going to be hurting them? So that's why I wanted to bring back our health and nutrition expert, Fatima Jordan. First of all, before she speaks, just want to just introduce her really quick because I didn't do that on the last episode. First of all, she's an amazing mom. She's got three amazing boys. They're wonderful. They're wonderful kids. They're very healthy. They're very active. She's got a very great marriage. Her husband, Antoine, is one of the greatest men I've ever personally met. But she also is a very successful and a very passionate health and nutrition coach. And so one of the things she continues to consistently do, and if you follow her on her social media, you see her conversating frequently about the importance of your health, your nutrition, taking in what you're eating, being active, making sure that every single thing that you're doing, you're giving yourself some kind of benefit and
Mhm.
not allowing yourself to succumb to what's in, what everybody else is doing. Because I think, in Fatima, you can obviously speak to this too. I think for us growing up, I don't think we had so much of an emphasis on this the way America has focused on it now.
Mhm.
But I want to just kind of get your perspective because your kids they're very healthy, they're very energetic. And one of the things I've always kind of taken notice to them is, okay, what is in the food that they're eating that gives them the energy that they need? Because knowing your boys, I mean, these guys they're very hyper, and they're hyper in a good way. It's not like they're hyper like they've eaten like 10 times the amount of sugar, but
Right.
it's kind of where they get their energy from.
Mhm.
You as the mom, you're very healthy, you're very active, you're athletic, you're fit. What have you personally been able to do just as a mom in terms of creating a healthy culture for the kids, creating a healthy environment for your boys? Talk about what you've been able to do with them and how that's benefited them.
Okay. Okay. So, the power is in our hands as parents on what we bring in the house. Our kids, they don't have jobs. They don't go out there grocery shopping and purchasing the snacks or the foods that we bring in the house. So it's what we're bringing in. We have the power in our hands to set the pace for our kids for a healthy future. So it's what we're bringing in. So I've really like learning about health, nutrition, the toxins that are in our food, shifting that and implementing that into how I meal plan, the snacks that I bring in the house, what I allow them to have, because it's what we allow, right? It's like what we bring in the house, what we allow, what we buy at the grocery store, what we say yes to and no to. So really shifting that mindset and explaining to them, okay, so this is what's in this. I mean, not like overloading them, you know, slowly transitioning them and explaining, hey, this is why we don't do this. This is why we don't eat this. We don't eat, you know, um, granulated sugar, refined sugar because of this. We don't eat it. We don't eat rancid seed oils because of that, or dyes. So we have to be careful and read the labels. And it's funny because my boys, when we go to the store, they will read the labels. They'll say, oh, no, I don't want it. Or at a party and they get a lot of candy. This is too much. I don't want it. I don't want that.
Hmm.
Or they can recognize, hey, this is giving me a headache. I don't want it. So the things that I bring in the house, I make sure that I'm purposeful and mindful of it. So that way, when they do go in there to choose, when they're just going in there randomly to snack, I know what they're eating. I don't have to say, hey, no, or slow down. There are some things like, you'll bring in some things like there's healthier options for peanut butter cups, Reese's peanut butter cups. There's a better brand for that and healthy option, but it's still in moderation, right? We want to do more fruits and vegetables than we do anything else. So if we're in nuts and seeds, and so if those are more readily available for them, they'll grab it. And the other thing too, my advice here would be like, put the fruits and vegetables on the top shelf of your refrigerator instead of like on the very bottom or in the drawers. Because if they're in the drawers, the
That's a good
vegetable,
point.
right? If they're in the fruit and vegetable drawers, they're not going to open them. They're going to, no, I'm going to grab whatever's available, on the shelf. And so if we put them on the shelf, they're already washed, they're already put in the bowls, or the bags, ready for them to grab, you know? So that's what I like to do. I like to make sure that I'm being mindful of what I'm bringing in the house, that I have it readily available for them. And when they do choose, I'm not having to yell no. No, don't, you
Hmm.
can't touch that. That's just a snack for this or that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, there's there's one thing I really want to bring up, and I had this conversation actually with a group of parents not that long ago,
mm,
and one of the things that as parents we had talked about was modeling for the kids. So, for example, um,
mm,
we have to like if we're talking about making sure our kids are eating healthy,
yeah,
they're getting, they're getting the proper nutrition every single day,
hmm,
then we need to make sure that we're modeling that.
yeah,
So if you're not
mhm,
modeling that in your house,
right,
but then you tend to want to try and coach them how to be healthy,
yeah,
what are they gonna, what's that gonna look like? Because I know parents that are not healthy, they're not active, yet they want to coach their kids. Okay, you got to be healthy, you got to eat healthy, and that can kind of create a little bit of in my opinion, it might create a little bit of like chaos and maybe a
yeah,
little bit of stress.
yeah,
So how have you continued to model that example for them, and we see them following your example?
yeah. Because we don't want to be the parent that says, don't do as I do, you know? Don't do what I do. Because when they see it, they're going to do it, right? And there's this quote that says, monkey see, monkey do. They will. What they see you do, they will do. I know when I was a kid and I seen my mom growing up, she wouldn't eat that good. She drank a lot. She smoked a lot of cigarettes. I ended up doing a lot of those things. So I'm seeing this as a model. So now going forward with my kids, there's I do make sure that I am an example to them. So they're my main reason, my driving force for getting up every day and eating right and exercising, making sure that, with what I'm telling them, I'm doing. And then when I'm explaining, hey, we're not going out and eating fast food. We're not gonna bring candy bars in the house and just snack away or all these crazy snacks. I don't buy them. I don't eat them. They know, okay, if anybody were to ask them, hey, what does she do? Or what does she like to do? Or what is she, what is your mom into? They'll tell you right off. My mom likes to work out and she likes to eat right. She's all about that. And so I make sure that when I'm making choices every day, I'm thinking about them. I'm like, I want to be that example to them. I want them to see, hey, mom does this. And I see that in my oldest. He's very active. He's very into exercising and working out, bodybuilding. He did do
Oh yeah, he's
bodybuilding is
fit.
not, yes, he is. And
Yeah,
he
he's
did a
fit.
bodybuilding competition back, I think it was 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. I would not recommend that because it's not the route that they go doing it is not healthy. I'm sure there could be a healthier route, but the route that majority of them go is not, like the way they eat and everything is just really unhealthy. But um, he, even taking that stance, so going that direction, that was the direction he chose to go into, and just being healthy and mindful of eating. And then he cooks his own food at home. Yes, he'll go out sometimes, but he cooks his food. Even my 14-year-old, one year he asked for a set of weights. It's what they see, and they want to be mindful of it. They're mindful. Hey, let me make sure I do this or that or work out or make sure I don't eat this. I'd rather eat this first. Drink water. They drink lots of water because their mom drinks a lot of water
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, just making sure that because I want to more than anything invest in their future that way.
Hmm. I love that, and it's better. It's the hydration factor. I think is helpful because let's 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 take a look back. Even when we were in high school and middle school, we weren't drinking enough water, even though we were watching videos about how you need to drink enough milk. Milk makes strong bones.
Yeah,
Make sure that you're hydrating, getting enough water. But here now, where you look fast forward years later in the schools, and I think it's been a while since I've been into a high school, but I know a lot of high schools have moved on from a lot of the major snacks that are in like the vending machines, the chips, the salts, the sugar, because a lot of schools they're trying to create a and promote a lot of healthy eating.
that's
Not
good.
well,
Mm.
I don't know what the success rate of that is, but I know just looking from my son's like his school meal, I know that not everything that on that menu, and I see it frequently, not everything on there is healthy. So it just kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, if you're promoting healthy eating, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to create? Because if you're promoting, I could see things like, I see pizza, I see chicken nuggets, I see a lot of saturated, oils, fats. That's not necessarily promoting healthy eating. You might be changing the menu, but what, in your personal opinion, what is the best way to properly promote and display healthy eating if you were in that position in the schools?
Mm, First of all, I would take away all the foods that have lots of saturated fats, trans fats, high sodium foods, the pizzas and the chicken nuggets, I definitely got to go because we know that's high
Mhm.
sodium, there's sugar in it. It's not healthy. And implementing more fruits and vegetables, more rice would be good, whole grains would be good, implementing that in there. Um, for main meals, I mean, you could even do turkey sandwiches or maybe do pizza rolls that are healthier, like the little pizza bites. I don't know what they're called. The pizza pocket little pizza roll things that they used to have. I don't
The
remember.
little
But
bagel bites, I think that's what they used to call
yeah,
it. Pizza
there are
bites?
healthier there are healthier options, but the thing with the school though is I understand why they would go that route on doing cheap and um more unhealthier because I mean cheap food is unhealthy, and so
Mhm.
they've got so many kids to feed. I can see why. So really, I mean, it's got to come down to the parents, honestly, and what we're allowing. And unfortunately, a lot of the lower income families, they're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to send their kids to school with proper lunches. A lot of kids go to school because they don't have food at home. They go to school for breakfast in the morning and then they have the school lunches because they don't have food, you know? Although there are ways for us as parents, even if we're lower income, to buy healthier options, you know, and even to send our kids to school with that. But for the schools, I mean, there's just so many kids. I don't know. They could do a little better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because there yes, some things might be considered cheap, but
Yeah,
cheap doesn't mean that your kid's gonna be healthy. In
that's true.
fact, I can just looking back, my through middle school, through high school, we had the same repeated menu over and over and over. So you had your chicken nuggets, you had your fries, you had your pizzas. They may occasionally have had the salad,
Hmm.
but it was basically the same thing over and over. And I tended to notice how my body reacted to
Yeah,
eating these things. Sometimes I would feel lethargic, I'd have less energy,
yeah,
you'd feel bloated, you'd feel kind of tired, and that's kind of the biggest thing is eating so much of those saturated like oils kind of makes your body tired, and so you
yeah,
shut down, but then you're
yeah.
not getting your proper energy boost.
Right,
Oh, but
right.
people say, oh, just go drink a Red Bull. Yeah, okay, but that's adding more sugar to that, so that's not
Yeah,
really giving you energy. that's just
no,
increasing that's just increasing your heart rate at a faster capacity to where you could be at a dangerous level, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have that stuff anymore. And well, one other reason is I had an irregular heartbeat years ago, and this was from a Monster energy drink, and now I don't even touch energy drinks anymore.
Yeah,
It's
no, they're
just straight
so
water,
bad.
black coffee.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's the way to go. I mean, if you want an energy boost for adults, I would even say even teenagers, you could do black coffee or put a little bit of milk in the coffee. Coffee's better than having an energy drink, better than having, I
Hmm.
mean, coffee's a brain food as long as you're not adding sugar to it, add some milk to it. I mean, even if you added honey, I do honey in my coffee. You could do that. Some raw honey to it. It's not refined sugar. So we won't have that, that issue with inflammation, and a huge crash. But yeah, yeah. When I think of the school foods and when you mention the chicken nuggets, the fries, and the pizza, all I can think about is the grease on it. It's greasy, 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 and unhealthy, and what it's doing in our kids. And like you said, there's a lot of sugar in those foods too. So they have this huge energy burst, after lunch, and then they're a crash, a really hard crash. And then we wonder, okay, is it really that our kids are really tired from coming home during the day, or are they having a huge
Hmm.
crash after school because of that sugar rush?
Hmm.
Gatorades in the school. And I mean, I would hope they wouldn't have energy drinks, but even the chocolate milks and the milks that are in the schools, I remember loving the chocolate milk in school, and how much sugar's in, yeah, right? Like how much sugar is in that and how much of a crash you're going to have later.
Hmm.
Terrible, terrible.
Yeah, it
So we
is.
also need to have people, we need to have food experts on the board when they're, creating these menus for these meals for the kids in schools, which we don't have a lot of. We have like what, lawyers and attorneys and scientists and stuff like that on the board, that on the school boards, or not necessarily school boards, but the ones who come up with the meal programs for the schools. It's all about money. It's not about, you know, the kids per se. Oh, this is going to be healthy for them. No, it's not. We need to have food experts, nutritionists that are on the board that are creating these meals and meal plans for the kids. So that way they're having a balanced meal at school. They could even, implement some beans. Those are cheap. And granted, I know a lot of kids don't like them, but they're beans and they're healthy,
Yeah.
so we could go that route.
Yeah. I want to kind of touch a little bit more on that. You and I, we were just kind of talking even like before we started recording about the aspect. We were talking about childhood obesity because I think childhood obesity in 2024
Hmm.
went up. I remember seeing a stat. I think it may have been like close to an additional 20%.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if if parents and families are trying to create healthy alternatives for their kids, but yet childhood obesity is continually on the rise, where do you see that the major problems, the flaws are? Is it the companies? Is it what's going on in the house? What's in your opinion, what do you see?
It's what's going on in the house, and that's why when I talk about health, I love to emphasize the fact that the power is in our hands. So the power is in our hands as parents. And I think a lot of times too, us as parents, we give into the cries of our kids, the wants. I want this, or the emotional breakdowns or the tantrums because they want a certain candy or chip or whatever, or juice, and we give into that. I'm guilty. I've done it. I used to, when my kid was a toddler, when my youngest was a toddler, I would give him apple juice every day for quite a while. Until I had to come to my senses. Think this is just a bunch of sugar first thing in the morning. And my kids, but I'm giving into it because my kids, he's not going to drink anything. Well, he's not going to drink anything else. But it's only because you're not going to force that. You take away the juice, take away the snacks. I had a pediatrician tell me one time, take away all the snacks. They'll eat food. And that's what we have to do. We don't need to allow our kids to snack every day. The power's in our hands on what we bring in the house and what we say yes and no to at the
Mhm,
grocery store when we bring them.
mhm,
If they're going to throw a fit, we need to put our foot down. No, we don't buy that. No, we don't eat that. You're not going to have that. Or find a healthier option. There's always a healthier option to it. If your kids are loving chocolate, we could do so much. I mean, it doesn't even have to be expensive. You could do so much with just some cocoa powder or some cheap chocolate chip, well, it shouldn't be cheap, but some chocolate chips, dark chocolate. Give them a piece of dark chocolate. Chips, we've got healthier options. I was just at Walmart today, and although, I believe all chip companies, they rip you off because you get this bag and then only half the bag is full. But the Boulder brand chips, the avocado ones, they had those at Walmart
Mhm.
for $3.42. And those are such a healthier option to Dorito, or, I don't know, the other brands, Tostito or something. We could find things that are cheaper that we can get for them, or take the snacks away and just fruit. Even if you can't afford fresh fruit, frozen fruit is just as good, and sometimes even better, because it's
Mhm.
not going to go bad on you, and it stays in the freezer. Even with frozen vegetables, put them in the freezer, unthaw them. You know, add some cheese to it, cheese and broccoli. Or peanut butter and celery or apples, something like that. But we
Mhm.
have to, and don't just, my other recommendation is, don't give up the first time or the second time or the third time. Keep introducing it. Maybe skip a few days or skip a week and keep introducing it. Eventually, they'll like it. Eventually, and take away, if you have to, take away the chips, take away the um, fruit snacks, take away the juice. Oh, you only got water. That's all we got. We only got water. You know, that way they will come. If they get in the habit of eating this, the more we do it, the more we do something, it becomes a habit. And then it's implemented into our life, and it's our lifestyle. So the kids are like, okay, well, that's what we do. We just drink water, or we have fruit. But we have the power. We have the power to make sure that our kids are healthy. And I've seen too many kids that are obese, and it affects more groups than others. Like, we have, the minorities are at risk of this, and lower income families.
Mhm.
Really, so we have to, but even being low income, you can still find ways to buy healthier options. Even if it's not organic, you can do a little better, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. And just to piggyback off of that, here's what I want to definitely emphasize is
Mhm.
not everything, and this is, it really is a message to the parents that you don't have to agree with everything that's on the kids menu or on
Right.
the menu at your school.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what you see, okay, well then do something about it. So if you don't like what you're seeing, give your kids something that's going to be better suited for them. So
Yeah.
if I see that, okay, today's menu says, let's go have brunch for lunch. Let's go have eggs, sausage, cinnamon rolls. Let's go have pizza. Let's go have orange chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know how rich and sweet and savory these are. So I'm going to give my son, here's an alternative because I want you to have a healthier life. I want you to have more focus, more energy. I want you to have more strength. I want your
Mm-hmm.
brain to properly function. So
Yeah.
this is what mom and dad, this is what we eat in our house. And I want to make sure that you're continually eating and eating the things that you properly need. And here's the, I know of what a lot of parents have said, and I want to get your opinion on this, is that, well, it's too expensive to eat healthy. What is your thought on that?
I love that you brought that up, because I was just thinking about that. Like, right as you're talking, I'm just thinking, I'm like, you know what? I had this conversation a few months ago with someone else, and she works for the health. She's a nurse, and she said she runs in, and she's a Latina, and has run into a lot of families who are low income, who can't afford it, right? So even if you can't afford, and it's understandable, even if you can't afford organic, and unfortunately, the cost of food is high at this point, and especially organic food. Um, do what you can. It's all about what you can do. Um, you don't have to do everything. We don't have to solve the whole world problem in one day or 2 days, or a whole household problem, should I say, which could be our whole world. Um, but start where you can. Even if it's, hey, I'm going to buy, and a lot of people go for brown rice. And quite honestly, I'm going to tell you what about that one. Um, Actually, like, a basmati rice is more healthier than a brown rice. It has less toxins in it. So, even if you go and it can be actually a little cheaper too if you buy a bigger bag. So if you go that route, even if you do buy brown rice, so be it. But start there. Do, rice. Like I said, beans. Beans are really inexpensive, and so many people can afford those, right? Buy frozen vegetables because they're cheaper than fresh, and they last you longer. Fresh, frozen vegetables, frozen fruit. Do what you can. Go with things that you know that, okay, I'm not going to do fruit snacks anymore. Don't buy those. Deduct these things. Deduct the snacks. Don't do the bad chips, because if you're low income, you can't afford it anyways. If you can't afford the good stuff, don't go with the crappy snacks. Stay away from that. Stay away from the processed meats. Go with chicken, even if you can't do pasture raised, or beef. Even if you can't, go that route. Just steer clear of the really bad foods that are in the middle of the grocery aisles. Because that's where you get all of your seed oils and sugar and added sugar and artificial sweeteners and all of those really bad things.
Mm-hmm.
High cholesterol foods,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so that's what I would say. Just start where you are. Don't think that you have to go organic or overdo it.
I think that's great, and I think that's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that are, I think there's a good percentage of folks that are, whether you're, teenager or becoming young adults, that are they're what I would say, they're in shape, but they're not considered healthy. And here's what I mean by that. And this actually is kind of a testament to what I dealt with. So, for example, I was a, three sport athlete all the way through when I went to college. So I did one sport after another. So I was working out, I was in shape. But here's the alternative.
Yeah.
Well, not the alternative, but here is kind of like the difference maker. A
Okay.
couple different times when I remember just being in the doctor, one of the things that the doctors had an issue with was my blood pressure
Mm,
was so high. So I remember having a conversation one time with the doctor, and the doctor said, "Son, on the outside, you look fantastic. Like
yeah.
you're in shape, you're lean, you're athletic, you've got a great just image, but on the inside, something's not right.
Right.
Like, are you okay? Your blood pressure is so high, your cholesterol level is so high." And I remember he dug into my eating habit,
Yeah.
and it just basically the doctor, I don't remember ever being put on the spot like this, but I really wish I could remember the doctor's name, because this
Yeah.
sounded like a doctor that actually really did care, because
Wow.
he was really digging into why my blood pressure, every single time I would come and visit, blood pressure was significantly high. It was ridiculously high. And so, well, then he came and just started asking about, my parents, "Hey, what is your kid eating? Like, what are you feeding him?" And so when I dug into that and I started giving him like what I was eating, one of the things he was discovering is, your nutrition is relatively considered poor, which means your internal organs are basically poor because you're
Wow.
eating a lot of oils, fats. There's a lot of fried stuff that's in your
Yeah.
diet. So when somebody asks the question, can you be in shape but considered healthy? The answer to that is, listen, you can be in shape but also not be healthy.
That's so true. That is such a good point.
And that was me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a good point. Um, because I would say that it's 80% nutrition and 20% exercise. It's mainly nutrition, because that's what's going to help us on the inside, which is really important. And then it'll show on the outside, I mean, we can work out all day long, just like people call people who are thin, skinny, fat, because on the inside, they are so unhealthy, but they're thin, Oh, you're so thin. Why should you worry? You're so thin. No, actually, you should. You can't eat what you want. You have to be mindful of what you're putting in your body and know what you're doing to the inside when you are eating poorly. So that's such a good point, and such a good topic to bring up, because so many people, they have that mindset of, when it comes to working out, I can work out that way. I work out that way. I can eat whatever I want. I eat whatever I want. Like, you just don't understand that it's mainly nutrition That's the big part. Your exercise is the small part. You know, it's even when you want to see results on the outside, it's more geared towards what we're eating. You know, and they tell you, it's built, your abs are built in the kitchen. If you
Hmm.
want a nice butt, it's built in the kitchen. Biceps are built in the kitchen, like we have to build it. We have to eat right and balanced because if we want to have results, then that's how it's going to show through. And then
Hmm.
also what's more important is what you were mentioning. If you want to be healthy on the inside, you have to fuel your body with good food. It has to be fueled. We can't continue to run off of AM PM gas, cheap
Oh
gas,
gosh.
really cheap stuff. So you can't continue to run off of that. Your seed oils and your added sugars and your food dyes and your nitrates and these other kind of added sweeteners, artificial sweeteners. You know, zero sugar, which means aspartame. you know, or other artificial sweeteners. We can't run off of that because our bodies you will start to see the effects. You'll
Yeah.
feel it. You'll see it.
Hmm. We start to break down a little bit, and we had a conversation. You and I, we spoke. This was, I think, even a couple years ago about okay, maybe if you want to deal with, if you're trying to break the issues of, because I was dealing with heartburn.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
Mm-hmm.
you dug into like, okay, well, what are you actually eating? Like, tell
Yeah.
me what your diet is. So one
Yeah.
of the things that I decided to give a shot was, okay, I'm going to switch away from the conventional meat to the organic.
Yes.
Now, I get, yes, there is a little bit of a price difference,
There is.
but for me, was it worth the investment? Absolutely, because I haven't had heartburn in a couple years now.
So good.
Because I made that transition, because I decided to feed my body um, something that's not chemical, doesn't have any
Right.
chemical now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm probably at the point where at least I would think, okay, I don't know if I'm at the healthiest point, but I've probably never felt better than what I have now.
Yeah. And that's amazing. I love that. And it's all from just a mind shift, a decision that you made that I'm going to go in this
Hmm.
direction instead of continuing down this path that, yeah, it does feel good. Like, if somebody's loving to eat sweets
Hmm.
a lot or high sodium foods or just the garbage or going out to eat at McDonald's. It is good. I remember eating a quarter pounder when I was a teenager, and that's yummy. It's good.
Hmm.
And it's supposed to be because that's what they want us to be addicted to.
Hmm.
But,
Hmm.
having that mind shift that I'm not going to go with what just feels good at the moment or what sounds good or tastes good. I'm going to go with this other option. It might not taste as yummy, but eventually it will if I continue eating it. It takes a while because your taste buds change. I think it's every 2 weeks, your taste buds, you get a new set of taste buds. Yeah. So if you continue, and that's why I say as parents, don't stop the first time because your kid's throwing a fit and they won't eat it. Don't stop. Continue to offer it. Continue to offer it. And here's my rule with my kids. Mainly my youngest, my 14-year-old, he's really good about he's got a better appetite than what he used to. But with my 10-year-old, I'm like, try 2 bites at least. You've got 2 bite minimum, 2 bites. And then sometimes it's 3. Hey, eat 3. Like when we have beans, he hates beans. But the reason why I make him eat them is because I know what it's doing on the inside. I know how it's helping him. It's fueling your body in a way that you need that you don't know. I know it's best.
Hmm.
No, you don't know the ins and outs of why I'm feeding you this food, and I know it's best. I try to explain as best as I can, and most of the time they don't want to hear it because they're kids. But we have to be the ones to implement this. We have to be the ones to put our foot down and say, hey, no, this is my rule. You give it 2 bites, 2 bites, 2 or 3 bites, and increase it. Okay, now, you're a little older now. Now you're going to give me 3 or 4 bites, and then you can be done, but you're going to eat that. You're going to eat your broccoli. You have to eat the vegetables. And I told my kids, slam them, slam the vegetables, because you know what? You're going to eat them. We're not going to pass out the bite. We're going to eat the vegetables. But, just setting that example, I seen this post on Instagram, of this health coach. And he said, as he was growing up, his dad has always been in the gym, always went to the gym, always ate healthy, and he always made sure that he he fed his kids healthy food, and so the health coach was like, this is what I seen growing up. And at the time, yeah, many times I did not want to eat that. I did not want to eat. I don't know why he's giving me this stuff. I don't know why he's giving me that. But now that he's an adult and he's in his 30s, he's implemented all these things that his dad has taught him over the years. And now he lives this life. Now he understands why. And he lives a life of eating healthy, of working out, and teaching everybody else how to do it, And like you had said earlier, we have to lead by example. And this is why I make sure that I make sure when I meal plan, because I meal plan for every week for the kids, and myself, but I'll meal plan it, and I'll make sure that I'm very, uh, mindful and conscious and purposeful about what I put on there every day. Like, I know we have to have a certain amount of this or a certain amount of that during the week. I make sure all of that's in there. So that way they get a balance.
Yeah. One of the things that I applaud you as a mom in a technology driven world
Mhm.
today,
Mhm.
you have kind of your boys they're very disciplined
Mhm.
because one of the things that they do so very well is you've you've eliminated time from them to remove themselves from the screens,
Mhm.
and you have them outside. You have them
Mhm.
active.
Yeah.
And it's very to me this is what's fascinating is I love seeing the fact that okay, there is that if your kids are constantly on the screen all day, sometimes they kind of there's something that they're lacking a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like that they're missing something. But
Yeah.
your boys are just in a season where every day they're outside of the house. And
Right.
sometimes I don't even think you have to tell them that. They're just getting out and doing that. So they're biking, they're going to
Yeah.
the skate park, they're playing
Yeah.
pickleball, which I played them not that long ago in.
Yeah.
And they're it's not like they're doing it for like 10 minutes because well mom said I have to go outside. No, it's already seems like it's ingrained in them to be outside. So just as a parent, how like when you how does that make you feel seeing them like every day? Okay, they're away from the screens, they're outside, they're getting exercise, they're getting the vitamin D. What is like how is that as a parent seeing that?
I love to see that they have structure and that they're learning they're learning not to go overboard with things, they're learning not to overdo things. Like, I'm not going to be on this all day, or I'm not going to um indulge in this constantly, and that they want to free their minds and be outside and play. I mean, it's what they should be doing. All kids should be outside and get some sort of exercise during the day, and want to. And I had to learn from my oldest, because that's not the way life was for us when he was young. When my oldest was younger, he was in the house constantly. And when we first moved up here, and in the community that we were in, there were no kids that came outside ever. Like, I don't even think there are barely any kids that lived in this community that we're in. But um, and he never went outside. And we did allow him to play on games and sit on the TV all day. And learning from that, I totally want to steer away from that, because that's not the direction that our kids should be on, because it does not help them at all, mentally. And as they are growing, as they're in a very vulnerable stage, teenage years, figuring out, who they are, and they're and gathering their thoughts on what they believe, and you know uh, and just their style, their what kind of opinion they have on certain things. I don't want that to be formed by a video game. I don't want that to be shaped by a video game, or a TV show or a movie that they're constantly addicted to all day, because they're still sponges even at teenage years. I mean, from toddler years all the way up, they're still sponges. They're still going to take in what they see, what they hear, who they're around, so just really making sure that there are limitations, and that we have a time limit for things. Okay, this
Mhm.
is it. This is how much time you're going to have on it. Do with what you will, and then we're done. And so
Mhm.
even, it's interesting to see now with my 14-year-old, setting those limits and those boundaries, the way that he is because I homeschool, and so the way he is at home when it starts when with school, like he has a certain time he'll get up in the morning, and they won't play video games, but he'll watch something on the TV, and he's like, okay, I gotta cut this off now. He knows when we're gonna start school, and he's like, I want to do this, and he's very structured. He's a self starter. He'll get on and do it himself. He'll start doing it. You know, a lot of times I don't even have to tell him. He just starts, and that's how he's been since he was,
Mhm.
gosh, 10, 11. And now he's 14. Self starter. He has a time frame for everything. Okay, I'm gonna spend this
Mhm.
much amount of time on this and this much amount of time on that. Um, Focused. So that's what I like to see. That's why I think as parents, we need to be mindful of that, of what our kids are watching, and what they're listening to. Uh, I believe that too many parents are handing the world into their kids' hands, and then you see a change, in
Mhm.
the child's behavior. And we've seen that with a lot of kids in our community, in our neighborhood, is they've gotten a device too young, and the way that their behavior changes is just not healthy.
Mhm.
So health is in that area too, mentally.
It is.
Mhm,
It's so big. It's in
mhm.
fact, I think statistically, if I remember reading, I can't remember the site that I saw this off. I think most kids, they're 78% likely to set themselves up for success if if they're more activity based. And by activity based, I'm talking about things that are done outside the house
Right?
versus in home, kind of being that homebody.
Mhm,
So when we
mhm.
can get the kids outside, when we can get them away from the home and into
Yeah,
something that is benefiting them. So like when we were kids, what were we doing? We were outside, we were with our friends, we were playing tag, we were hide and go seek. We were doing those things that, it was so simple, but you didn't know in the process that you were actually getting exercise.
right? I know.
You were
It was
actually
fun.
working out
Yeah,
because you were running, you were hiding, you were
yeah,
playing, you were using your energy,
yeah,
and you weren't sitting at home. You were playing the video game. I mean, we played video games, but then my parents kicked us out of the house for a little
right?
bit because
Exactly.
they wanted us out the house more than they wanted us
Yeah.
in the house.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
we can't keep the kids locked up in the house.
Yeah.
In fact, we're not really helping them
Right.
when we do that. We're hurting
No.
them in the
Yeah.
long term. We're not setting
Yeah.
themselves up.
Right.
So what give us a couple like final tips to properly setting your kids up for for their best overall health, mentally, physically, spiritually. Talk about
Yeah.
some things that you and Antoine
Okay.
have implemented that maybe other people are wondering, okay, how can I make sure that my kid is on board and that I know that they're healthy in their mind, they're healthy in their spirit, they're healthy physically and relationally.
Mhm.
We have health in that. What are some things that you and Antoine have done and maybe some other people are kind of wondering, how can I make sure that I'm setting myself up for success?
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. So if we go on a whole, um, we have to lead by example, like we said. And with health and fitness, um, with all of these, with health, fitness, mentally, spiritually, relationally, we have to be present parents. We have to be present. We can't just be there. We have to be present. Like we can't just sit in a room and be on a device or be on our phones. We have to engage in conversation, be active with them. And that's a big thing. So with health, like I was saying, with nutrition, we make sure that we are mindful about what we're bringing in the house. We set the example by eating well, eating well in front of them as well as behind their back. So we're not just sitting in the car going out to eat at McDonald's behind their back, but we are being honest. We're being a person of integrity, behind our kids' back and in front of them. Making sure that we are leading by example and being active. You're exercising, you're making sure that you're healthy, physically, and then also engaging in activity with them. Don't just yeah, it's good for them to go outside and play with their kids, but go engage in activity with them. Hiking, pickleball, biking, walking, things like that with them. So they saying, hey, they're not just pushing me out to do it alone. I'm doing it. They're doing it with us. My husband um, became a soccer coach last fall, with my 10-year-old, and then my 14-year-old assisted him. So they were all engaging in this activity together. So be present, be active together. When it comes to relationally, making sure that you're engaging in conversation with your kids, um, allowing them to feel comfortable to come to you. When you allow them to have a voice, you'll be surprised, and sometimes you'll be quite shocked at some of the things they'll say, and maybe you got to take a step back and be like, wait a second, was this the right choice to let you be this vocal, this verbal? But it's good when you allow them to feel comfortable enough to come and express their opinions, or to let oh, this is bothering me, or that's bothering me. Even a good healthy debate is not bad. You're allowing your kids to have a voice, to be able to be open and comfortable to talk to you. And I love that. So I love having open conversation, open communication with them, not reacting when they come to you about any issue. You just do your best just to hold your tongue, and conversate and not argue. And then when it comes to spiritually, making sure that we are coming together as a family, and what we do is in the evening, when before bedtime, we come together and we read the Bible together in the evening. We talk about it, and then we have scriptures that we say together, that we each pick a scripture, and my boys know quite a few of them, and we will go over them. We'll just, everybody picks a scripture and you just repeat it. It's a scripture that we're just speaking. Because when we feed it into our hearts, when we are reading the word, it gets in us and it comes out. So I'm like, we're going to make sure that we implement that, and then praying together as a family. So make sure that that is first and foremost. And then at church, we serve together. My boys love serving. It even started before, it became a thing of, we're there for 2 services, because I would serve, go to a service and serve a service. And so sometimes they'd be like, I don't want to just sit around. Well, come in here and help, and now they both serve. Now we all serve. So, making sure that that's a family thing. We make sure we do things as a family. We have specific nights that we do activities together. Like if it's like go out and go bowling, or go roller skating, or go out to eat once a month, we all pick a place and go out to eat. And that way we're doing something as family, or movie night at home. Always making sure that you're coming together as a family. That's what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love it. Those are some great healthy tips, and everything that you guys are doing. I love what your family is, how they've just continued to represent, and you guys are a huge blessing, obviously, to us, and we're just excited that we get to partner in life with you. And obviously, you're tremendous on being here on the show, and of course, I know you'll be back again soon.
Yes,
so thank you for always giving us your insight, your tips, your coaching, but more importantly, thank you for just yours and Antoine's, your guys' gift of your friendship and your bond. That's what, and when you have that, when you have those, that's another version of health. And we can go on and on about that.
Doing life with people. Yeah, I love it.
Doing life.